For today's Grimm adventure, we find ourselves exploring Paris. Well, more importantly, we're at a cemetery that my entire life I've always known it as Père Lachaise. Whether I'm saying that correctly, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not from France. It's an American accent, if you will. But we got some famous graves, we got some beautiful statues. As you can see behind me, the leaves, it's fall. And we're inviting you to join us on this very special French Grimm adventure.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
As much as I'd like to be able to capture everything inside the cemetery, know this, it's like a labyrinth. There are passageways in between tombs. There's one this way, tight passageways. There are multiple levels to the ground here. We could spend all day and not see everything. But we kind of have a list. The first one being that we're going to check out is the final resting place of Jim Morrison. They say if you're coming here to visit the cemetery and one of your stops is the final resting place of Jim Morrison, that you should get here really early, because especially throughout the year, certain times, it gets really busy. A lot of people come here. But Jim Morrison's final resting place is right there in the center of your screen. They got a fence up so you really can't get close to it. And there are a ton of people here. It's pretty crazy, right? James Douglas Morrison, 1943 to 1971. Man, it's pretty wild. People come from all over the world to leave stuff here. And I'm not even kidding. It looks like a bunch of people come here and they leave bubble gum. Do not touch this tree. Aside from leaving bubble gum, looks like people have etched different things on mausoleums and tombstones close to his, like there's this. And then in this tomb right over here, looks like they've inscribed some things on the walls in here. Let's see if I can see this. It says, "Before I sink into the big sleep, I want to hear the scream of the butterfly." Can I see it there? Something everywhere. This one might be a little hard to see, but it looks like somebody carved LA woman into the side of the same tombstone. Oh, the same crypt. You see it there? It really is just a line of people walking by, paying their respects just to see his grave. I think they said that this is the most visited grave in the most visited cemetery in the world. I feel like at this point in life, if you don't know who Jim Morrison or the Doors are, you're kind of living under a rock. Visiting that grave, visiting Jim's final resting place, is a pilgrimage to any Doors fan, any music fan, anybody who comes to Paris. You gotta stop. Just know there's gonna be a lot of people. Now we always say, you gotta look up. It looks like the same thing applies here at this cemetery. You see that up there? The skulls with the wings on it? Pretty neat, right? If you look at it closer, it's pretty wild. You got some owls there. You got a couple different skulls with wings on them. But then look at the portrait there. I mean, come on. Look at the details. This is amazing. Beyond amazing. A lot of these crypts, the doors are open. Not like they were left open, looks like they were just kind of busted open. So you can walk up and see inside them. Now there's a little box up there. Now this is very interesting, because if I pan back a little bit and put the camera down, there's an old chair in here. I know somebody is, I'm not going to do it, but somebody would probably open that box. Most of the time, whenever we see statues in cemeteries, especially in the States, there's really nothing original about it. You can't feel the emotion. This cemetery, however, every tomb, every grave, every statue that we see tells a story. So now that we've seen the final resting place of Jim Morrison, the next grave that we're looking for is Chopin. And he's somewhere up on this like little hillside. It's like a little secluded area, not too far from Jim. But trying to find it, well, let's just say thank goodness for maps. Every stone, every statue, every bust, every marker in this place is beyond gorgeous. I mean, look at this. I'm not climbing on the grave. There's just steps that go up right next to the statue. You can get a better look at everything. Pretty wild. Another grave I never thought I'd ever get to visit. Yet here I am. A lot of the statues in the cemetery are larger than life as well. I mean, you really have to look up. I mean, come on. How beautiful is that? Now, believe it or not, this giant crypt at the end of this walkway is what I'm most excited about visiting here, even more than Jim Morrison's grave. This is the cemetery's catacombs, ossuary, whatever you want to call it. It's never really open to the public. Occasionally it is. But inside, the cemetery has a very strange way of doing things. And before we get into that, what I should say is you can still be buried in the cemetery. They're still burying people. But I think the only rule is you have to be living in the city. Yeah, and there's a wait list. Now there are so many people buried in the cemetery already. I'm talking millions of people. It's really hard to keep track of everything, and there's people still dying. So what happens is, a lot of times, there's a special rule here that, I think it's like 30 years or something like that, they're allowed to open a crypt, or they're allowed to resell a crypt if somebody hasn't renewed their plot every 30 years. So they can resell it to other people. So they can open a crypt, follow me, they can open a crypt and they can remove decomposed bodies and put somebody else in there. Some families have 12 people, 24 people, entire families just kind of put in and push down. And eventually, whenever they have to remove remains, they put them in here. So this is kind of like the catch-all of the cemetery that nobody really talks about. Follow me? And it was a lot. It's a weird kind of thing. The more you read up on it, it'll make sense. And out of all the statues and the tombs here, the statues here have to be my favorite. I mean, come on. I just can't stop looking at the people. Life size. It's almost like you expect them to come to life and just walk down the steps. But they won't. Well, we hope they won't. Now, this giant tomb right in the center of your screen that's lit by the sun is for playwright and poet Oscar Wilde. And as far as I can tell, it's the only one here in the cemetery that is surrounded by glass. It's because it's the most kissed grave in the world, as well as this cemetery here. People come from all over and they kiss it. Lipstick still on it. They ask you not to do it because it's been wearing away at the actual stone itself. I know I say this a lot, but this is another grave that I never thought I'd ever get to visit. Oscar Wilde, the man responsible for the picture of Dorian Gray. And massive, I mean, look at this. I'm 6'2", standing at the base of it looking up. It's towering above me. There's his name right there. And if you look down, there's actually a plaque. It says, "Respect the memory of Oscar Wilde and do not deface the tomb. It is prohibited by law and a historic monument and was restored in 1992. Well, leave it to people. If they can't kiss the stone, they can kiss the glass. You can see all the lipstick marks right here. If we go around the back here, there's a door so people can actually get in and maintain it. Crazy, right? Such tight quarters back here. On the back is Oscar Wilde's epitaph. I'm not going to read this, I never do. Feel free to pause the video, read it as best as possible, and then come on back. It's still pretty wild to see this with his name on it. It's neat that there's a little latch that goes into the actual tomb itself. I wonder if it's like an actual room in there or if it goes down some, right? Makes you wonder. Now, we're not going to kiss anything, but Jessica, every time that we visit a grave here in Europe, we've been leaving coins. But you can kiss the coin, correct? So give it a good kiss, and drop it in there. It's open on the bottom.
Came back out at me.
She got paid.
Rejected.
Well, we didn't realize it, but it's open on the bottom. So as soon as the coin hit the ground, it bounced back, and basically Oscar Wilde gave you your money back. He's like, I don't want this. How dare you kiss a coin? Kiss my stone. We're not going to do that. Sorry, Oscar. Walking up the hill, I noticed this plaque right behind me. And I wanted to stop and point it out. Remember whenever we were talking about how after, I think it's like 30 years or something like that, where if a plot hasn't been renewed or maintained, that they can resell it, or they just keep adding families. This one here says families. It has a bunch of different family last names or surnames that are actually here. It's not a very big, I'm going to stand up a little bit. It's not very big. I mean, that's it. It's just like a single door. And you see a lot of this. This is the first time that I've actually seen a sign. Now, what is probably the most comical grave here in the cemetery is this one right over here, just past this mausoleum on the left-hand side. There's a street that has mausoleums on both sides, and then right in between two of them is this guy. Now, for some reason, well, before we say anything, do you notice something a little bit odd, a little bit off, a little bit, dare I say, bulging on this? That's right. So a lot of people say that this is they kind of treat it like a good luck for fertility. And for some reason, this statue has a very large bulge. We're going to call it the David Bowie Labyrinth bulge. And people come up here and they rub it. They rub his bulge. And as you can see, the patina here, I'm going to point the camera down. It is completely rubbed off in that one area. And the guy's getting lucky even in death. Looks like his lips and his nose are worn off as well. I was wondering if people come up here and they kiss him, or maybe they sit there. You never, yeah, I went there. You never know. And also right down here on his chest, maybe somebody was rubbing his heart. Either way, it's a neat little story about this place. Baby girl, look at this mausoleum to the left with the glass. Still intact. It's like a greenhouse. that stained glass. Just look at that mammoth crypt. That thing is huge. Let's get up there and get a closer look at some of these statues behind the gate. Wow. All I can say is wow. Talk about taking my breath away. And sometimes the statues, the big ones, yeah, they're beautiful, but sometimes it's the smaller ones that just kind of creep you out a little bit. And look at this guy here. His face looks like it's been broken off. Got wings. That's something else. I will say this. Once you see a cemetery like this, it changes you. Like whether you're a tapophile or you just love going out and exploring, when you see this level of statue work and mausoleums and crypts in a city like Paris, you don't see anything else the same way ever again. Let's get around here. The sun in the back. I want it. I want to live here. I want to be buried here. Well, in that. Oh my word. Did not expect that. Let's see here. Lift the camera up as high as I can. We turn the corner and Jessica's like, wait a second, this is the fancy sector. Well, I don't know about that, but I will say this. It's definitely the haunting sector. Now, like I said, we're not going to be able to get everything. There are so many little details and little things that you're not going to catch unless you walk through this on a day-to-day basis. We found pretty much everything that we came here to look for, but there's one stone in particular that we really want to find. And believe it or not, it's proving to be the hardest. I can tell you what it is. Once you see it, you're going to go, oh my God, well worth the search. We've walked around this cemetery quite a bit. There's even a tomb here. I think it's called like the Tomb of the Dragon, which is supposedly the hardest one to find. And believe it or not, I found it earlier when we started this video with like the fall trees, the fall leaves falling everywhere. And I said we'd go back and see it. Haven't seen it since then. So we found the hardest one to find the first time. And one of the easiest tombstones to see. We're having a hard time. That's how it goes. Cemetery safari. Well, we found the tomb that we were looking for. And I'm telling you what, the entire time that we've been here, there's been birds cawing off in the distance. And this is kind of fitting. I'm glad we found this now instead of in direct sunlight. You can see it over here on the left-hand side. You see it? It's a hidden statue within the tomb. Basically, it's breaking free. George Rodenbach, 1855 to 1898. Now that is unique. Wow. We turn the corner And we are greeted with this street right here. If you know anything about this cemetery, then you know that this is probably the most photographed street in this cemetery. Recognized it immediately from the pictures. I can't believe we're walking this. It is so peaceful, aside from the birds. I just can't get over how surreal this place is. Honestly, I don't want to leave. I don't know if I can ever move to Paris, but if I knew that I was dying, like terminally ill, and I had a certain amount of time to live, I might buy a house in Paris just so I can be buried here, spend eternity in this cemetery. This one is a little disturbing. It looks like you're walking up to the gates of a church. And then the two statues on both sides, they're actually missing their heads. I don't think that was intentional. But beautiful. Oh my God. There's the candles up there. Well, they're not real candles, they're concrete candles made to look like little candelabras. Now, we've seen the Weeping Woman quite a few different times here in the cemetery. And this is the first time seeing it with this kind of patina on it. Usually it's just like a concrete granite piece. And it was really hard to make everything out, but here, man, the one on the left, she's covering her mouth and her nose, her face, and the one on the right, man, she's really, really crying over there. Talk about beautiful. I know I sound like a broken record by saying, oh wow, at everything, but can you blame me? Pretty much everywhere you look here, there's something hidden. Walked almost right past this. Look at that face on the left. Now here's something you don't see every day. Most of the time whenever you see statues in cemeteries, they're either granite or they're green. A little bit of rust, sometimes bronze. This one here has been painted gold. It's the gold statue. Pretty. I think last on our cemetery tour is the final resting place of French singer Edith Piaf, who died in 1963. Beautiful little spot, kind of on a hill, but it's nice to see all these different wreaths and different pictures for her. Nice little photo collage on a piece of slate up here. 1915 and 1963. Talk about peaceful. You know what? I don't think I've been really showing this, but I'm sure you noticed it on some of the different tombstones and mausoleums and crypts that we were showing. Family. I like the gold lettering. Very nice. What I find absolutely crazy about this cemetery is how destroyed a lot of it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, the crypts, the mausoleums, the statues, some of the stained glass, a lot of the stained glass in the doors are broken. Been vandalized, and you can't really tell, or at the same exact time, is there just some sort of beauty and decay? Is that part of its beauty, part of its charm? I'm not complaining, but at the same time, it's It makes you wish that everything was the way that it once was. Even some of the statues have been destroyed or vandalized, if you will, but a lot of them are just so breathtaking, like this one. It's definitely an interesting atmosphere here. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time from Paris to one of the most beautiful, most visited cemeteries in the world, Père Lachaise. I'm going to stick with it. I know everybody says it a little bit differently and you're probably going to get on me for it, but thank you. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.